In the Impact segment tonight, the gay marriage situation is exploding in Massachusetts. As you know, 4 Commonwealth judges declared marriage between homosexuals valid, and that's the only state where the situation exists. Well, some Massachusetts residents petitioned their legislature for a direct vote about gay marriage, and yesterday the vote was okayed. But another okay has to be given by the new legislature. It's kind of complicated. And the new governor of Massachusetts, DeVal Patrick, and the very liberal Boston Globe oppose any vote on gay marriage at all. With us now, Michelangelo Signorelli, a radio talk show guy on Sirius. Okay. I want to just walk through this thing because I don't want to get involved. It's almost like the Iraq thing we just did. There's just no resolution to the bigger question on whether the Constitution guarantees your right as a gay man to be married. Sure. I don't think it does. You think it does. And I will hearken back to the fact that I don't think Benjamin Franklin, James Madison, Thomas Jefferson wanted the federal government to have anything to do with marriage at all. What they wanted was the locals to decide what kind of society they were and to make their own marital laws. So marital law is different state to state. For example, some states you can get married at 14, sometimes you have to be 16, and the feds don't have anything to do with it. So I think that the spirit of the Constitution was let the local people decide about marriage and all of these other social issues. Would you agree?
I would agree, but it was let the states decide, not necessarily the majority of the people, including the state Supreme Court.
Okay, so let the states decide is the spirit of the Constitution. Then we go to Massachusetts, where you have a judicial fiat, which means the judges say, we found a loophole. It doesn't say marriage is between a man and a woman in our Constitution in Massachusetts, so we're going to let gays marry. All right. It doesn't say marriage is between a man and a woman. That's true. But if you open it up as a civil rights issue, which most gays do, that we have the right to be married, right? You believe that, right?
Absolutely.
As an American, I have a right to be married. Then you have to then open it up to polygamists. They have a right to be married, too. They want to marry 2 or 3 people. Don't you see? Because it's equal protection.
Well, this polygamy thing is thrown out every time. Every time we hear it. And gay marriage did not open the door to polygamy. Polygamists have been trying to gain access for years and years and years. And that's not what gay marriage is about. Same-sex marriage is about 2 people wanting to have the same rights that heterosexuals have.
And I would say people having the same
I would say it is the same thing as a black person marrying a white person. Interracial marriage was banned in many states.
That's what the point the Boston Globe made today, and I'll tell you why that's wrong. But you have to address the fundamental question of you want 2 people to be married, correct? Sure. Why don't 3 people? Why can't they get married?
Because 2 people are how marriage is defined now.
No, marriage.
And gays and lesbians are simply asking to be included in the existing marriage scheme. It's not a radical change for marriage. It is still about 2 people.
But you're still
if there's a divorce,
other alternative
if
groups.
there is a divorce, there is still the same issue about custody, one person or the other, property, etc. Polygamy is a whole other thing. It involves a group of people. It is not within the scheme of marriage. And polygamists could have fought for it for all these years.
That is what God intended us to be. Because in the Old Testament, we had many wives. Look, what I'm trying to tell you, and I'm doing with all due respect, is that gays have to understand that to let one alternative group in, you cannot exclude the other alternative
The same
groups.
Argument was put forth regarding interracial marriage.
All right, here's the interracial deal.
If you allow blacks to marry whites, you're going to have polygamy.
Here's the interracial deal.
Didn't happen.
And here's why that does not pass the constitutional test. Because marriage was defined between a man and a woman. Nothing to do with color. Once the color barrier was put up by racists in some states, that violated the Constitution. Because the state constitution says marriage is between a man and a woman.
There's nothing in the Constitution saying a man and a woman should be married.
No, in Virginia, where the interracial thing was decided, in Virginia Constitution says marriage is between a man and a woman. And then Otis said, no, that's right, but Otis said, I want to marry a black woman. And they said, no, you can't. And that was a clear violation. Here in Massachusetts, you basically said, okay, we're going to redefine it. We, the judges, are going to redefine it. That's what happened. What is wrong with allowing everybody in the state to affirm the judge's decision? Because shouldn't the laws be made by the people?
You don't bring a civil rights issue to a ballot. In 1969, I'm going to go back to Loving versus Virginia. 1969, the majority of Americans, according to a poll then, 90% were opposed to interracial marriage.
But it clearly violated Virginia constitutional law.
No, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that states cannot ban marriage based on race. The Supreme Court got involved in the state issue.
But the Supreme Court, if you were right, would have ruled that gay marriage is a law of the land in every state, and they have not. Because
it hasn't gotten up to the United States Supreme Court yet.
It will never get up there. And they will kick it back because there isn't any inherent right, the federal government, to tell a state who can marry and who can't. You'll lose.
There is the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution.
Why shouldn't the folks, as they have in California and Oregon and every other state, be allowed to say, this is the society that we want? If the Supreme Court thought that banning gays from marriage was against the Constitution, believe me, sir, it would have already been ruled, just like Roe v. Wade. And it has not been ruled and will not be
Here
ruled.
is the reason, and this gets back to my belief and many people's belief that it is a civil rights issue. If you believe that a civil rights issue should not be brought to a ballot because the minority will always be voted down by the majority, because that's what civil rights is about. It's a minority being oppressed by the majority. If you believe it's a civil rights issue, then you have to do whatever you can to make sure it doesn't come to a vote.
Okay.
And
that's what the Boston Globe and you guys are trying to do. But I'm telling you, you're trying to do it in a way that excludes other people, the polygamists, the triads, and this and that, and you can't explain that exclusion, and that's why I can't sign on. Can't sign on. Because you want what you want, but you don't want to give them the same rights, and you don't have a reason.
Well, I don't care about them. I care about two people, gay people, who have paid their taxes and who want to be treated as heterosexuals.
The Constitution isn't in motion to cater to your whims.
And there is not and has not been any sort of huge movement for polygamists to try to gain. This is all blown up by the adversaries.
I'm just telling you what the law is in the land.
I'll tell you what I think it is, Bill. It's a desperation move. They go to polygamy and then bestiality. Oh, I want to marry my dog.
No, bestiality is a public health thing. Okay. Very interesting discussion. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Coming right